Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nathan Fish. I'm the Ontario Regional Rep for the Adult Cystic Fibrosis Committee, and would like to welcome all of you here today to our continuance of the session from this morning on living longer with cystic fibrosis. So we have two speakers today, and first we have Alan Kearns. Alan is the head coach and founder of Career Joy, and a career expert for Workopolis. He is one of Canada's foremost experts on all things relating to careers and the author of Get the Right Job Right Now. Alan has more than 17 years of experience coaching professionals with major career decisions, and he is here today to talk about breathing life into your career. So I'll pass it over to Alan.
Great, thank you. So as I was thinking about today, one of the thoughts that came to me about this whole issue that we're dealing with is your illness an identity issue? Does it become ingrained in your identity? And that was something I was thinking about. So I want to share a little bit about when I'm thinking about that. Does it become part of your identity? Does it become, in some ways, an excuse, or does it become a catalyst? And how that relates to managing one's career. And I know having an illness, I grew up with a mother that actually had, interesting enough, had a lot of problems with asthma. And in my own experience, what I did see a little bit in my mom's case is it became part of her identity. It became part of who she was. It became part of and obviously having an illness is part of who you are, but in a sense, in her case, I don't know if it was always constructive. I don't know if it was always to her benefit, the illness itself, and the way that she interfaced with the illness, the way she related to the illness as per her personality and the elements around it. So I certainly don't want to speak to you as having this illness myself, because obviously I don't. But I just want to raise that issue, raise that observation. Being, living in a family where there was an element of illness and its impact on our lives. So this is kind of a personal thing. So who here has kids? Put up your hand if you have kids. Here's children. Who has ever had to raise funds for their events or raise money for their events? Who here really loves that? Oh, you do? What do you like about raising money for events? You love asking people for money, okay.
Okay, I think it's just like almost, you feel like you're selling. So it's like, and then the reward is, okay, I'll give you money, I'll donate. And
okay,
then it's a sense of accomplishment, you feel good, and you're doing something good for a cause.
Okay, so you enjoy that. Who else likes asking people for money? You do. So what do you like about that?
Same exact as Carol.
Okay, which is?
Sense of achievement, you feel like you're doing something worthwhile.
Okay. So I have to say that I actually don't necessarily like asking people for money. I like the idea of helping people. I like the idea of making impact, but I don't really enjoy that concept of asking people for money. But my daughter and my kids are both in competitive sports, and I'll use my daughter as an example. We were asked to go to the independent grocer, and we were there to raise money for her swim club, and we're going to ask people as they're coming in for money. And so we got there in the second group. So the group had been there from 8 till 10. We were in the 10 to 12 group, right? So the core hours in a grocery store, right? That's a good hours to get. And so we were there, and I got there, and you could just sort of see the relief as we walked in the door, as they're like, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to do this anymore. The people that had been there since 8 to 10, they're like, you could just see in their face, it's like, oh, good, this is done, I can go home. I'm glad this is over. And they'd had a pretty good, a good result that morning. But then as we started to do in our group, and there's a team of 4 of us, there was 2 girls and a mother and myself, and we were helping out. And the girls started asking people for money. Now what happens when you ask people for money? I already gave it, yeah? How good is eye contact when you're asking people for money? People are pretty good about avoiding eye contact, aren't they? Right? So I was thinking about this. How could we approach this differently? How could we approach this whole concept of asking we have a need? How could we deal with this whole question differently? And so I suggested to the girls, let's do this. as people are coming into the independent grocer, let's offer them a shopping cart. Now, when you need to come in a grocery store, what is one of the things you typically need when you arrive in a grocery store? A shopping cart. So we would offer people shopping carts. My daughter would go up and say, would you like a small shopping cart or a big shopping cart? Right? Because there's two sizes, right? And we had actually both set up as you walked in, so you could either take one or the other. And then what we would say to people, we'd say, oh, by the way, we're here this morning raising money for the swim club, for the swim club that we're part of. And I just want to let you know that. And if you choose to donate, on the way out, we'll be doing a draw, and you can buy some tickets. Now, what do you think the response was for most people as we started asking, we approached it that way versus when we sat at our little table and asked for money? Why? Why do you think it was much more positive?
It's more of a suggestion than a just, outright like ask, and you're giving something.
You're giving something. Okay, why else do you think it was a benefit? Why do you think the response rate got better?
You suggested that they maybe have time to think about it, and then on their way out to perhaps consider giving you money.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so they had time to process it. Yeah. Yeah.
More people are more likely to respond to friendliness too. So by getting them, on your side, so to speak, I guess they would be more likely to give some money.
Absolutely. We built a relationship. When we give things to people, they're more likely to want to give something back to us, right? So we offered them some value, didn't we? I mean, we do need a shopping cart when we go, and we had the shopping cart available. It wasn't the scenario that please give us money. It was actually here, we're going to help you. We're going to give something to you. And out of that, we're establishing actually a relationship equity, aren't we? We're establishing a piece of equity that we might be able to trade on. So how does this relate to our discussion this morning or this afternoon? Well, I think what's interesting is who here who likes fishing or has ever been fishing? Well, for years, I have been fishing. I grew up, my parents used to send me to camp every summer. And as part of that experience, I learned how to fish. And it was one of my favorite things to do. And I'm on a number of different boards. And one of the boards I was on actually offered us to send us, believe it or not, for a 2-day flying fishing camp. And so we went actually with a guide. And this guide took us out on the boat. And there was a group of 6 of us in the boat. And we started fishing. Well, 2 of the people I was fishing with, there was 4 of us altogether, and 2 of the people started to beat me. They started to get more fish than me. Now, who here is competitive? Yeah. So that caught my attention, that I'm not catching as much fish as these guys, and yet I have fished all of my life. Now, why is that? What's going on? Why are they catching more fish than I am, and I've fished all my life? Well, what's interesting is the guide came up to me about a third of the way through the morning. He saw my frustration, and he said, Alan, I want you to try this one little trick when you're fishing. Now, what's interesting, when I changed my style just slightly, guess what happened to my fish production? It tripled. And in fact, what actually happened was I actually ended up winning the fishing derby. Thank you very much. What I took away from both stories of my daughter and myself is a slight change in our approach to things can actually get much better results and with a lot less stress and a lot more joy. Now, when I looked at our kids and our response to that morning, when we left, when we compared what we generated in revenue that morning versus the group that went before us, we had generated, how much do you think, in percentage-wise, do you think we generated over the group that was before us? We had generated 5 times as much of results as our competitors, our competition, you want to use it that way. And yet, was it harder for us? It was actually 5 times easier. And it actually, if you think about it, when I look at our kids and the way they responded when they left, they had full of energy. They were full of energy. They really enjoyed the experience. And for most people that were involved in the experience, it was a much better experience for the people that were part of that experience that morning. And we actually had more conversation. So as I relate to this discussion about breathing life into your career, because I think a slight adjustment in your strategy could have a much greater impact on your career than you think. And it's obviously, it's not always a big deal to change. It can be a slight change, and it can make a big difference in the way that you're approaching your career and approaching the way that you respond. Well, what's a word you've been hearing a lot in the last year in the media? The word recession, right? Well, I've been calling this the world that we're in right now is a resettion, where things are fundamentally being reset. There's an incredible amount of reset going on in our economy. And it varies in a bunch of different ways.